Well, after my weekend of marathon uploads on the Yakuza series, I thought I was done for a little bit, but sometimes you find an article that really gets your blood pumping. And that's what I found today. It was an article on Kotaku, of all places, about the lives and the economic concerns of streamers. And if you've been following the channel, this is a topic that I've said tons about over the past 3 or 4 years. And it seems like, shockingly, a lot of my analysis is accurate. And if you haven't seen or listened to some of those videos and podcast segments, I'll cut to the chase. In the streaming economy, you are getting screwed. So let's take a look at some of the highlights of this article. I will link to it below. It'll be the first link that you see. And they talk about, and I really can't blame the author. She starts off with what she actually says is a laughable notion of labor problems for streamers. How this is an emerging industry, there's no real regulation, and a lot of these streamers put in extreme hours. So she, and by the way, the author's name is Cecilia de Anastasio, and she talks about a couple different people. I have no idea who they are, but they serve as interesting examples. She talks about someone called Little Siha, who's got 40,000 Twitch followers and has a 50-hour-a-week job, but streams somewhere from 8 hours a day, and then works on her stream look and graphics and stuff like that at work. She claims that just this work adds another extra 25 hours of labor to her work week. She then talks about a guy named Ben Bowman, who goes by Professor Broman, and he puts in 12 to 16-hour streams, which, of course, does not include the setup time and the equipment and all the rest of that. She does talk about Casey Tron, who has basically serves as an example of someone who has found a work-life balance, and a guy named Burke Black, who is a pirate streamer, not pirating stuff, but he apparently appears on camera as a pirate. He works for 10 hours a day. And the whole theme kind of running through these very small portraits of these people is that they feel compelled to stream as much as possible to keep the money coming in, that they are beset by nervousness and uncertainty, and they feel that the only way to combat their financial uncertainty is to just stream for as long as their bodies will hold out. They talk about other streamers in here. They don't mention names, but people who have been caught in this situation and have had sort of mental issues and sleep deprivation, and they just sort of quit streaming because of the stress that it places on them. Now, Twitch's Senior Director of Community and Education, a guy by the name of Jason Maestas, he puts in his 2 cents here. He talks about how these people should think of themselves as, quote, bootstrapped entertainment startups. The pressure on creators is enormous, and the job that they do is not an easy one. No matter the platform of choice, we admire the grit that it takes to succeed and appreciate the trust put in us by the creator community. Now notice the language that Twitch uses here, and all YouTube and Google and all the other things when it comes to content creators. It's a community. It's a content creator community that they facilitate. It's not what you would see from like an actor signing a contract with a Hollywood production company with built-in regulations on wages and labor and stuff like that. No, it's just a community, and you have to have grit and perseverance and give it your all. And that notion of giving it your all is what you see in a lot of the quotes from a lot of these people that they interview. They seem to accept this new reality of the entertainment business. In fact, the Twitch guy says this is, in fact, a whole new kind of entertainment business, and the parameters are up to the creators to define. So all of these guys that they interview here see it as an almost financial and creative imperative to stream as much as they can, as frequently as they can. It's kind of interesting. One of this Broman guy talks about the pressure of being live all the time and how the in real life category on Twitch, which was just recently announced, kind of adds to that. He sort of foresees a future where you take your fans with you wherever you go. They are watching constantly. So also in the article, you have this idea that, well, you have to treat your content, and of course, I hate that word, but you have to treat your stream as a small business operator would treat a small business. The process, as I've pointed out so many times, is that you're not a small business. If you are streaming on Twitch, you are a user. You're just a different kind of user. And the platform is what makes the money. You do not make the money. Now, that's not to say that people aren't making good money on Twitch. Of course, just like on YouTube with PewDiePie, although I've heard he's taken a hit because of some Jewish gag that he did. Nonetheless, there are these examples of people who make a ton of money, and I've put some links below where you can see exactly how much money people were making. It's kind of interesting. Some people claim that they can make about $300,000 a year. This one guy, let's see what his name is, Steve Bunnell. And again, that link is below. Estimates that he makes $1,000 from ad revenue, $3,000 to $5,000 from subscribers, donations. He claims he averages $1,500 a month, and of course that doesn't account for partnerships and stuff like that. So you're always going to have, in reporting on these new industries, these examples of people making fantastic wealth. But of course, what you don't see is the fact that millions more are making nothing or next to nothing. And I think the people that come up in this Kotaku article are sort of in between. They are on the way up. They are aspiring to get into that 1% of social media people, but it is a struggle. Now, I tried to do some sleuthing, and it's actually hard to find, except for this one guy who made these rough estimates. Not a lot of people, not a lot of streamers will talk about the nitty-gritty of their relationship with Twitch, and of course, this is not public information. I did link to Amazon's earnings. Of course, they had I think a better year in 2016 than they had in 2016. They make about $2 billion in income. They purchased Twitch for almost $1 billion, like $970 million 2 years ago. And if you read the link that I put to the Business Insider article about the logic of why Amazon purchased Twitch and why other tech companies are getting into gaming, it's because they want a platform for advertising authenticity. From their perspective, they don't really give a fuck about you as a streamer. They want you to be there. They want you to be successful to a degree if you're streaming the popular stuff. They want to create a financial incentive for you to continue, but their bigger goal is to go to game companies and go to people who are buying advertising and saying, look, not only do we have the numbers, and some of the Twitch numbers are astounding, how many concurrent views they have. I mean, they are starting to rival a traditional media company in that regard. But they want to say, not only do we have the numbers, but we have an authenticity that our streamers create. So that's incredibly profitable. Now, even if some of these guys are making $300,000, $400,000 at the top, and again, it's hard to estimate, that is nothing. And let's say there are 10, 15 of those people out there. That is a drop in the bucket for a company that wants to sell billions and billions and billions of dollars of advertising through the platform. And let's not have an illusion here. The person that's creating the authenticity is the streamer. The streamer creates a sense of authenticity. The streamer gathers an audience, which, as I've said many times, and I'm not the only one who said this, it's commodified attention. So there's a lot of labor that goes in to, the streaming end of it that, yeah, it's compensated, but Amazon is ultimately making a killing off of all of these hours that these people are spending in front of the streams. And if you're spending your life in front of a camera as a streamer, it's not really a small business because, as I've said, this is platform dependency. You are completely dependent upon the decisions of the platform owner who's making a killing and who will adjust the terms and conditions of use based on their bottom line. They don't care about your bottom line. It's about their bottom line, as we've seen with the crazy YouTube advertiser-friendly nonsense and YouTube Heroes and all the rest of that. But let's take it a step further. I mean, it's fairly curious that no one is really going to talk about the nature of their agreement on Twitch because, of course, you're competing against other Twitch users and you don't want to rock the boat. But we know, for example, this is published, that when someone subscribes to you on Twitch, you pay, or they pay $5 a month. Twitch takes half of that. You get about $250. I've heard if you've streamed long enough, you're popular enough, they give you a 60-40 cut. But that's $250, and then you have to pay taxes on that. And what are you going to be in the 20-25% tax brackets? You're probably going to pull in anywhere from $1.80 to $2 from these subscriptions, and this means that, and again, these are rough estimates as someone who has made $0 on Twitch. I don't quite know how it works, but you have to pay taxes on that. So if you wanted to make $25,000 after taxes, which is a livable wage for a single person, you have to have about 13,000 subs. Again, assuming you're in that 20 to 25% tax bracket. And that's not even factoring the churn, how many people are subscribing and unsubscribing, and how many hours is it going to take you to accomplish that number of 13,000 subscriptions. As we're seeing, it could be for most of a 24-hour day. We see this kind of behavior also in YouTube. They take a 45% cut of everything that you earn. In Twitch's, in YouTube's case, they tell you what your ad revenue is and your CPM and how many people actually engaged in a full monetized view. Twitch, to my knowledge, does not quantify, at least to the user, exactly how many, what the rate of profit is on the ads that they're selling on your stream. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I couldn't find that information anywhere. And it drives home the point that the actual proposition, if you want to do this to make a living, and let's be clear, the people who are on social media, the people who produce videos and produce streams are still working, even if they're not making a living at it. But let's stick to this level of making a living. Your real hourly wage, assuming you're not in that top 1% of streamers, is a lot lower than you would expect. And let's take another platform, Uber, where this information was released. I've linked to it. Basically, Uber drivers a couple of years ago released some documents that showed what the real hourly wage that they earned was in 3 cities. I think it was Houston, Detroit, and Denver. And so, it's a lot less than Uber advertised. The people in Detroit made, I think, $8.50 an hour, $8.77 an hour after expenses. That's only 27 cents above Detroit's minimum wage. The Houston people did a little bit better, making $10.75 an hour. People in Denver did $13.17 an hour. Now, obviously, if you're in more affluent cities, you're going to do better. But this isn't. This is, yes, better than a minimum wage job. But from what I understand, if you look at peer-to-peer platforms, A friend of mine told me about a food delivery service in England where they were claiming, oh, you could make, I don't know, 40,000, 50,000 pounds a year, but you literally have to be on call all the time. You must work as much as you can physically work. Apparently that's the case, as I understand it, with Uber. If they claim you can make 100 grand a year doing this, I mean, you've got to be driving for 12 or 14 hours a day. And the same is true with streaming. If you really want to even break into relevance, you're putting in a 10 to 14 hour day that may as well be uncompensated until you get to the point where I think you have to hit a certain threshold on Twitch before they'll even offer you a partnership where you can then monetize your stream. And if you read the comments to this article, one of the commenters pointed out, I think he said, I'm a PhD student and I want to get into this, but part of me thinks that this is kind of like a new creative path. People can make a good living, or it's really just the gig economy in another form. And of course, Uber and food delivery services are gig economies, and this seems to be what the economy in general is pushing a lot of millennials towards: is work, uncertain, precarious work that are paid on a freelancing basis. You are the heart and soul of the platform. If Twitch didn't have streamers, the platform would be worthless. If YouTube didn't have big YouTube personalities, again, what would YouTube be worth? And the same thing with, you could have a great Uber app if there are no drivers willing to haul your drunk ass home from a bar at any hour of the night. The platform is worthless. So the people supply the value to the platform. The platform simply very efficiently and very creatively coordinates that labor, which is valuable, but I think it's overvalued in this equation. Now, if you were to take all of the people who are producing so many hours of this symbolic, unpaid labor in sort of streaming and YouTube, people like me who don't really make all that much, people who stream for hours and get no benefit from it, it's really hard to estimate exactly what they're earning. Now, I was at a lecture in New York City a couple months ago now, and someone mentioned the work of a guy named Ballons, who in some book somewhere tried to calculate this. The guy's a peer-to-peer economist and kind of someone who thinks that rather than being exploitative, the peer-to-peer economy could be a way forward in reducing inequality. I haven't read a lot of his stuff, but anyway, he was in this lecture, they quoted this Ballons and said that in his rough estimate, the actual average hourly wage of people doing all of this streaming and YouTube and all the kind of social media revenue-generating activities is closer to like $2.35 an hour. Now, I don't have the book where this argument is made, so I can't verify the data, but if you Google this guy, Ballons, if you don't find that exact number, if you're not willing to cough up the money for his books, he does have a couple articles where you can kind of see the logic of this argument that he's making. And it's an interesting one. What happens, there has to be winners and losers in the gig economy. There has to be the people driving insane amounts of attention to their space on the platform. And to monetize the platform effectively, you, A, need a lot of users, and then B, you have to create a kind of value regime around those users. And so you need the big guys. You need the 1%. You need the people who are raking in the big bucks. And let me make it clear, they're working equally as hard as some of these people in the article who are, spending 10 to 16 hours a day just trying to get by. I don't want to make it seem like the top people aren't working. They really are. But it creates this situation where you have this value regime where you need people to fail. In fact, you need a lot of people to fail. What do I mean by that? Well, you need, for example, all of these users. Take me as an example. I spent this past weekend uploading some videos about Yakuza 0, A, because I was passionate about it, B, because I had time on my hands, and C, because I could not talk to anyone about it. So in that state of boredom and nerdy desperation, I turned to YouTube. And of course, no one's going to watch those videos, but whatever. We need a lot of people who just do it as a passion, do it as a hobby, do it because they need an outlet, and that is a kind of anti-value. You need a lot of people to fail to hold up a couple and say, look, this is the standard, this is the trend. And I'm not talking about, me, who doesn't really have any following, but I'm talking about you need levels of success. You need people who, as hobbyists, can gather 15 to 20,000 subscribers, or on Twitch, who can generate a couple hundred views. Because obviously everyone's taste is different, so you're going to need to cater to everyone. And yeah, if you're streaming and you've got 100 people viewing you at any given time, you're probably not making tons of money. But at the same time, you want to create a situation where, as you have a lot of people on the platform, you funnel them into certain sort of big tent kind of shows. And on Twitch, that's going to be something like the Evo stream, where they can get almost 100,000 people watching, or the crazy fad things like the Twitch Plays Pokemon and all of that stuff. On YouTube, you want to get as many people there and sort of drive them to your Warhorse channels. I'm going to admit, I clicked on what is trending. I don't know who these people are. Maybe the Fine Brothers before their debacle, the PewDiePies and stuff like that. So you need to have this range. And the reality is, if you find yourself on the bottom 2/3 of the range, you are meaningless as a quote-unquote creator to the platform. And this is to say nothing of the kind of weirdness that Twitch creates, this increasing ability to turn your entire life into a monetized commodity. And I find it actually fascinating to sort of click through Twitch, and you have these in real life people, and they're just sitting there doing their nails or eating dinner, or the social eating thing. It's just a curious situation that I think young people 35 and under find themselves in, where so many avenues to real economic security are cut off, where you're just crushed with student loans and stuff like that, that the only thing that you have to sell, because selling your labor in a kind of traditional economic sense is, for many people, not making ends meet. I mean, especially if you have student loans, if you have housing debt, if you have kids, God forbid, if you have medical debt. I mean, what you're earning through an hourly wage is not enough to get your head above water. So you turn to creating an online persona, or you don't even create an online persona. You just commodify your life. And even stranger still are the people who spend their lives watching other lives. I talked about this in one of my Words I Hate videos, that, people are broadcasting their consumption so that we, the viewers, can consume other people's consumption. It's incredibly curious. Take the Egirl phenomenon, about which I was just made aware by a friend who sent me some links to Twitch channels of women who are unabashedly selling their images, shall we say, on Twitch, and who are raking in presumably tons of money. One of the people who this guy sort of linked me to was a girl by the name of Celestia Vegas, or something like that. Vegas something. And she had apparently gotten hundreds of thousands of followers in a couple months, doing what is basically softcore pornography, and in fact suggesting that the more followers she gets, that's the road she will go down, is this really how we want to live our lives, as people who see their bodies, see their time, see their very speech as something to monetize and put out there in the stream so you can, throw tidbits or whatever those fucking things are called that people throw in the cup for $0.01 a piece and get donations and get, streaming or advertising revenues and subscriptions. It creates this strange model by which, we're valuing certain lives and certain perspectives at a certain rate. And as a gamer, and why are they targeting gamers? I mean, it's kind of interesting. As a gamer, someone and I have tried streaming. On the one hand, it seems like a rational choice. Why not, if I'm going to play a game and streaming has become easier, bandwidth has become faster, why not just plug in the Elgato and try to get an audience and try to monetize this activity that I'm doing anyway? On the other hand, as I've experienced with streaming, you feel like, or at least I feel like, I'm going insane. I'm talking to myself. I really don't want to talk. No one's there listening, and then maybe someone pops in and pops out, or someone says hello. And it's a rather kind of strange and depressing experience. I mean, I equate it to something like it's becoming like a hostess club, in our sort of closed off, atomized existences where we're just sitting alone in front of screens all the time. There's now a value in having someone on the other side of the screen interacting with us in a certain way, and the more money we pump into them, the more authentic that interaction will seem. It's a kind of depressing turn to reality. So a long video, which will probably just reinforce the point of anti-value. No one will watch it, no one will comment, no one will care, but I feel better about it. So I'm contributing my time and my thoughts to YouTube, and maybe the 20 or 30 people who watch it will be on the site and click on to PewDiePie and see why he was kicked off of YouTube Premium advertising. So I'm doing my part here in the streaming economy. If you do care, if you find this topic interesting, let me know what you think. And that is my critical take for today.